قد أفلح المؤمنون.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. صلى الله على محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل Muhammad. Respected Muslim brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we're going to be continuing with the biography of Sayyidina Jabir ibn Abdullah, and today we'll be focusing on his life after the Prophet, as well as some more of the narrations that he passed on. And that being said, let us just go ahead and dive right in. So, the first report that I would like to bring to your attention regarding Jabir under the reign of Abu Bakr. Under Abu Bakr, there is a very interesting report regarding Jabir that I would like to draw your attention to. And this report is very important when it comes to discussing the polemics of Fadek. So this is Sahih al-Bukhari, hadith 2296. And this report is also found in Tabaqat ibn Sa'ad as well as Malik's Muwatta. Now, the report reads as follows. And this report is actually narrated, if we look at the isnad, this is very, very interesting. I want you to make note of this, is that this is reported on the authority. We look at the isnad. Al-Bukhari from Ali ibn Abdullah, حدثنا سفيان, حدثنا عمرو, سمع محمد ibn Ali عن جابر ibn Abdullah. Muhammad ibn Ali here is none other than Imam al-Baqir. Salamullahi alayhi. The second report, the one from Malik's Muwatta, has an alternative chain. It does not go through Imam al-Baqir, has a different chain. However, this report it's in Bukhari, it's authentic. It's also found in Tabaqat ibn Sa'ad. But we're not going to quote that one just because we want to save time and just for brevity's sake. However, let's look at what Imam al-Baqir reported from Jabir. He said, the Prophet said to me, if the money of Bahrain comes, I will give you a certain amount of it. The Prophet had breathed his last before the money of Bahrain had arrived. When the money of Bahrain arrived, Abu Bakr announced, whoever was promised by the Prophet ﷺ should come to us. So I went to Abu Bakr and said, the Prophet ﷺ promised me so-and-so. So Abu Bakr gave me a handful of coins, and when I counted them, they were 500 in number. Abu Bakr then said, take twice the amount you have taken besides. This report, and this is just me theorizing, this is not explicitly stated anywhere, this is me theorizing. I believe that Imam al-Baqir salamullahi alayhi reported this because he was trying to bring our attention to something. And our attention, what is he trying to bring it to? He's trying to bring it to the fact that when there was a dispute between Fatima Zahra and Abu Bakr, what did Abu Bakr say? He said to Fatima, the first thing, the first round, and I went over this in more detail in the video, the series on Sayyidah Zahra, salamullahi alayha. Fatima said to Abu Bakr, Rasulullah gave me Fadak. And so Abu Bakr says, bring me witnesses. So Fatima brought Ali and Ayman, correct? And there are some other reports that indicate that she brought a servant, one of Rasulullah's servants, to bear witness as well. However, that is under dispute. What is certain is that she brought Ali and Ayman, salamullahi alayhi, correct? So that makes three: Fatima herself, Ali, and Ayman, correct? Three companions of Rasulullah, three of the people of paradise. Because each one we have nas for them specifically, showing that they are the people of paradise. But Abu Bakr, what did he say? He said to Fatima, you do not have enough witnesses. This is not enough witnesses for me. I need, your claim has fallen short. And by Allah, had she brought another witness, he still wouldn't have given her the land. Correct? So here's the issue. What does Jabir's hadith have to do with Sadaq and Sayyidah Zahra? Why is it that when Fatima says this land was given to me by Rasulullah, that this land was given to me during his lifetime, that Fatima needs to bring witnesses? However, when Jabir says that Rasulullah promised me the money of Bahrain, Abu Bakr, what does he do? He says, here, don't just take what he promised you, take double. I'll give you more than he promised you. No witnesses necessary. In Umdatul Qari, I remember in Umdatul Qari, Sharh Sahih al-Bukhari by Badruddin al-Aini, how does he do sharh of this hadith? He says, the reason why Abu Bakr gave Jabir the money without asking for witnesses is because as-Sahaba kulluhum udul. Sahaba, all of them are trustworthy people. None of them would lie. And then he goes so far as to say, he says, a normal person wouldn't dare lie on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa. So how can we assume that the Sahaba would lie? So we would turn back around and ask the followers of the so-called Siddiq, so why didn't he apply this ruling to Fatima? Why did this Zalim not apply the same, fairness, the same justice and generosity to a Sayyidah Zahra, salamullahi alayha? And I do not need to mention the hadith, but it is, for the benefit of those who may not have heard it before, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam said in the mutawatir hadith, "Man kadhaba alayya muta'ammidan falyatabawwa maq'adahu min an-nar." So, continuing on. According to Ibn Sa'd in Kitab al-Tabaqat al-Kubra in volume 4, page 386, he says that Jabir served as a arif over the Ansar during the time of Umar ibn al-Khattab. And a arif, this is a very interesting word. There are certain words in Islamic history that we have to stop and break down. So for example, like fay is one of them. You have to understand what fay is. You have to understand what kharaj is. You have to understand what a mawla is. You have to understand what a jariyah is. So here, the word arif, what does it mean? According to Ali ibn al-Athir in his book An-Nihaya fi Gharib al-Hadith, on page 608, he explains a arif is the chief member of each tribe or clan, and he was chosen by the Khalifa as the mutual connector between the Khalifa and the tribe. So he was basically a high-ranking member in the tribe that would report directly to the Khalifa regarding the affairs of his tribe. So that's for Jabir under Umar ibn al-Khattab. As for Jabir under Uthman ibn Affan, there is a report from Ibn Sa'd in Kitab al-Tabaqat in volume 3, page 47 to 48, when he's going over the events of Uthman's Khilafah. He explains that when the Egyptians came to Medina, and subhanAllah, it seems that Egyptians have always done this thing of trying to overthrow the government. When the Egyptian protesters came towards Medina, Jabir and 50 other members of the Ansar were sent by Uthman, along with Muhammad ibn Maslam al-Ansari, to negotiate with the protesters and to persuade them to return to Egypt. So he was basically selected by Uthman to try to go and turn the Egyptians back. However, as we know, they were not successful because the Egyptians ended up besieging Uthman and they ended up killing him. Regarding his time with Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi, according to Shaykh al-Saduq in Kitab Man La Yahdharu al-Faqih in volume 1, page 166, hadith 698, Shaykh al-Saduq reports the following. He reports that Jabir radhiyallahu ta'ala alayhi, he fought at the Battle of Nahrawan. Correct? He narrates a report that would indicate that he was at Ma'rakat al-Nahrawan. In the last days of Amir al-Mu'mineen's Khilafah, there's a very, very important hadith here regarding Muawiyah, Abbahullah. In the last days of Amir al-Mu'mineen's Khilafah, Muawiyah sent various commanders to raid and pillage Amir al-Mu'mineen's territory. And one of these people was Busr ibn Abi Arta, or Busr ibn Arta, la'natullahi alayh. And so, by the way, Busr ibn Arta is a Sahabi, and if any of you are interested, you can go check the 12rshia.net article, which essentially tries to argue that there's no issue with narrating from this murderer and this serial killer. This man, infamously, he attacked Mecca and Medina during the Khilafah of Amir al-Mu'mineen, salamullahi alayhi, and then he went to Yemen, and in Yemen, he slaughtered the 2 infant children of Ubaydullah ibn al-Abbas ibn Abd al-Muttalib. And this person, we were supposed to take hadith from him. He's a Sahabi Jalil. This monster who also infamously stripped naked during the Battle of Siffin when Imam Ali came after him. In any case, it is reported that in the year 40 after Hijrah, Busr ibn Arta attacked Medina. And one of the people who was in Medina was Jabir. So the tribe of Banu Salama is a subclan of the Khazraj. They were the tribe of Jabir ibn Abdullah. So Jabir reports that when Busr ibn Arta came to Medina, he hid in the house of Sayyidah Salama, salamullahi alayha, and he asked her for advice because Busr ibn Arta was telling Banu Salama that if they do not give allegiance to him, that he would essentially, like, he would do harm unto them. And so when they came to give him allegiance, he said, "Where is Jabir ibn Abdullah? Unless Jabir shows up, I will not accept your bay'ah." And so he went to Salama and he asked her for advice. And so Salama said to him, "You should go and give bay'ah. It is a bay'ah of dalalah, but do it to save your blood and the blood of your clan." And so this is reported in a few sources, and there was no issue with, we're going to mention all of them to hammer this point home. It is mentioned in al-Bukhari's Kitab Tarikh al-Saghir, and the chain here, the isnad here, is Hasan due to Muhammad ibn Ishaq, Sahib al-Sirah. The weakest person in this chain is Muhammad ibn Ishaq, Sahib al-Sirah. So in this report, we see that the report says, it says, وَأَنَا أَعْلَمْ أَنَّهَا بَيْعَةُ ضَلَالَةٍ. So Salama is telling Jabir, it's like, this is a bay'ah of dalalah. This is a misguided bay'ah, but you should do it anyway to save yourself and to save the blood of your tribe, to save the blood of your clansmen. This report can also be found in Tabaqat ibn Sa'd, in volume 4, page 286. In Shi'i sources, it can be found in Kitab al-Gharat by Shaykhuna al-Thaqafi, rahmatullahi alayh, in Kitab al-Gharat, page 415. And lastly, but certainly not least, in Kitab Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba, volume 17, page 110, hadith 32,588. So in all these reports, we see the same wording. We see the same wording, that Sayyidah Salama, and the report of Ibn Abi Shayba is sahih. The report of Salama, she says here to Jabir, فَإِنَّكَ إِن لَمْ تَفْعَلْ قَتَلْتُ مُقَاتَلَتَنَا وَسُبِيَتْ دَرَارِينَا. And in the other one, the report of Ibn Abi Shayba, curiously, does not have the line of Bukhari, where she tells them, it's like, this is a bay'ah of dalalah. And so this is a very, very important report, because we see here that Jabir and Salama are making it clear that the bay'ah of Muawiyah is a bay'ah of dalalah. That's point number one. Point number two is that the Mukhalifin like to play this game where they're like, oh, like Fulan gave bay'ah to Fulan, or Fulan gave bay'ah to Fulan, or, why did Ali gave bay'ah? So that means Ali loved our Siddiq and our Faruq. And we say, no, this is not the case, because giving bay'ah under threat of violence is a viable option, even if you know the bay'ah is a bay'ah of dalalah. And if you disagree, well, I'm not the one who said it. Sayyidah Salama said it. And Sayyidina Jabir ibn Abdullah, he enacted this ruling, correct? So now let us go over some of the reports regarding Jabir under the rule of Bani Umayyah. So we went over some reports about him under the rule of the early Khulafa. Let's go over some reports about him during the rule of Bani Umayyah. So Ibn Sa'd reports a very sad report. A report that really, really drives home the sorrow that Jabir felt during this time period, because as we know, Jabir is a mu'min. Jabir mu'min ibn Shaheed. Jabir was a righteous companion of Rasulullah. Jabir loved the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He held on to the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet, and he held on to the Ahlul Bayt. He held on to the Thaqalain. So for him, the Umayyad period was nothing short of a catastrophe. So we read in Kitab Tabaqat ibn Sa'd in volume 4, page 387, we read the following. We read that Jabir, during the Umayyad period, he went blind. So a group of people used to come to him and narrate to him what's going on in Iraq, what's going on in Syria, what's going on in Egypt, what Bani Umayyah are doing to the Islamic Ummah. And so Jabir said this line. He said, "It would have been better for me if my hearing had gone just as my sight had gone, so I would neither hear anything from their news nor see it." So Jabir is saying, he says, I wish I had gone deaf as well as blind, so that I don't have to keep hearing about what Bani Umayyah are doing to the Muslim Ummah. And there is an example of this. There are reports that indicate, some of the innovations that Jabir witnessed, that he dealt with. We read in Tarikh al-Tabari in volume 18, page 101, that Muawiyah, rahimahullah, he at one point intended to move the minbar of Rasulullah from Medina to Damascus. So Jabir said to him, he said, "Commander of the faithful, we remind you of Allah, Almighty and Great. Do not do this. For it is not right for the pulpit of Rasulullah to be removed from the place where he put it, nor for his staff to be removed to Syria. Would you remove the mosque? And this is something very famous, is that Muawiyah, he wanted to move the minbar of Rasulullah to Syria in order to increase his own legitimacy. Al-Mas'udi, rahimahullah, also has a very interesting report in Kitab Muruj al-Dhahab. In Muruj al-Dhahab, he reports the following regarding an interaction between Jabir and Muawiyah on volume 3, page 138 to 139. He reports that Jabir had gone to Muawiyah in Damascus, and Muawiyah did not give him permission to enter his court for quite some time. And this is dhillah, when someone comes to visit you for something and you force them to wait. This is considered very disrespectful. It's considered very, very rude. And so we see here that Muawiyah was essentially, what he was trying to do, he was trying to belittle Jabir. So when he finally let Jabir in, Jabir confronted him. He said, "O Muawiyah, did you not hear Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say, whoever withholds a favor from one who needs it, Allah will withhold his favor from him on the day of resurrection, while he will need it the most?" So Muawiyah became angry and said to him, "Did you hear him saying, you will face difficulties after me? So remain patient until you meet me at the pond. Did you not hear that?" And this report is very mass transmitted by the Ansar. There are multiple Ansaris who Muawiyah used to confront with this report. Among them is Abu Ayyub al-Ansari, and I think this is in al-Mustadrak al-Sahihain, where basically what Muawiyah would do is he would bully and he would belittle and he would disrespect the Ansar. And so whenever the Ansar would tell him, like, why are you doing this to us? Muawiyah would mock them by citing this hadith. It's like, remember how the Prophet said that you guys are going to encounter difficulties after me? So you should remain patient. So remain patient. I'm going to keep oppressing you, and you have no choice but to remain patient. So when he brought this hadith up, Jabir responded, "You reminded me of something which I had forgotten." He's like, "You're right. Rasulullah did say that. He did say that after him we are going to encounter oppression from the likes of you." So Jabir left Muawiyah's court. So Muawiyah, when he sent his messenger after Jabir, radhiyallahu ta'ala alayhi, the messenger came to him, he said, "Muawiyah sent you 600 dinars. Jabir returned the money. He didn't accept the money from Muawiyah, and he wrote a letter to Muawiyah saying, "I take contentment in sufficiency over wealth when they come together, and fresh cold water over all drinks pure. And I choose to decide for myself, though some are decided for. And I clothe myself in garments of modesty, and I see the place of wealth as not to demean my dignity." Then he said to the messenger, he said, tell him, "O son of the liver eater, you will find no good deed recorded in your book because of me." And this line is very powerful. In Arabic it reads, قُلْ لَهُ وَاللَّهِ يَبْنَ آكِلَةِ الْأَكْبَادِ لَا وَجَدْتُ فِي صَحِيفَتِكَ حَسَنًا أَنَا سَبَبُهَا أَبَدًا. So he says, "Muawiyah, I will not accept your money. Wallah, I will never be the cause of you getting a good deed on your sahifa on Yawm al-Qiyamah." There is a report now that I want to go over, and this is one of the most important reports about Jabir ibn Abdullah. This is a very important report for our corpus of Ziyarah. And this is reported in a book called Masar al-Shia. And this report is reported by Shaykhun al-Mufid, rahmatullahi alayh. He reports, on the 20th day of the month of Safar, the women of our master, Abdullah, salamullahi alayhi, returned from Syria to the city of the Prophet. It is also the day when Jabir ibn Abdullah, radwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, the companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, arrived from Medina to Karbala to visit the grave of Abu Abdullah salamullahi alayhi. So he was the first among the people to visit him. There is another report that gives us more detail. It's in a book called Bisharat al-Mustafa, in page 134 to 136. And this report is, the author of this book is Muhammad ibn Abi al-Qasim al-Tabari. So he reported with his chain to Sulaiman ibn Mahran al-A'mash from Atiyya al-Awfi. And he tells the following story. He says, I went out with Jabir ibn Abdullah, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi, al-Ansari, to visit the grave of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. When we reached Karbala, Jabir approached from the bank of the Furat, and he performed ablution, and he wrapped himself with a garment, and then he put on another garment. Then he opened a pouch containing saffron, and he sprinkled it all over his body, and he did not take a step without mentioning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until he approached the grave. Jabir then instructed me, take me to touch it, or make me touch it, because, as we know, Jabir at this point had gone blind. So Atiyah had to guide him to the grave, had to guide his hands to the grave. So he says, I helped him touch it, and he fell unconscious over the grave. So I sprinkled some water over him, and when he regained consciousness, he cried, O Hussein, 3 times. Then he said, a beloved does not respond to his beloved. And then he said, but how can you not answer? How can you not answer? Your body has been cut into pieces, and your head separated from your body. I bear witness that you are the son of the seal of the prophets, the son of the master of the believers, the son of the covenant of piety, the descendant of guidance, the fifth of the people of the cloak, the son of the master of the Nabiyeen, the son of Fatima al-Zahra, Sayyidat Nisa al-Alameen. Why are you like this while the hands of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam once fed you, and you were raised in the lap of the pious, nursed with the milk of faith and weaned with Islam? You are pure in life and pure in death, except that the hearts of the believers are not tranquil due to your separation. There is no doubt in your righteousness. Peace be upon you, O souls who have settled in the courtyard of Al-Hussein, who are welcomed by his journey, and I bear witness that you established prayer, that you paid zakat, that you enjoined good, that you forbade evil, that you fought against the disbelievers, and worshipped Allah until certainty came to you. By the one who sent Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam with the truth of the prophet, with the truth as a prophet, we indeed share with you what you experienced. Atiyah al-Awfi reports, I then asked him, Jabir, how is it that we did not descend into a valley, nor climb a mountain, nor strike with a sword, while the people have been separated from their heads and bodies, their children orphaned, and their wives widowed? So he's asking him, he's like, Jabir, why are you making the claim that we are with these people when they are the ones who did jihad, but we did not really do any jihad compared to what they went through? So Jabir replied, O Atiyah, I heard my beloved Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam say, whoever loves a people will be resurrected with them, and whoever loves the deeds of a people will be associated with them in their deeds. The one who sent Muhammad with the truth as a prophet, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and my intention and the intention of my companions are like that of Hussein and his companions. Now take me towards the outskirts of Kufa. And so Atiyah says, I then took him to the outskirts of Kufa. So Jabir said to me, Atiyah, shall I give you advice? I do not think I will meet you after this journey. And this is true because Atiyah, as we know, he was wanted by Hajjaj. So he had to flee from Iraq to Khurasan, and he spent many years of his life there. And Jabir, as we know, he went back to Medina. So this was the last time they met. So Jabir says to him, I do not think that I will meet you again after this journey, but I will give you the following piece of advice. Love the lover of the family of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as I love them, and hate the hater of the family of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as I hate them, even if he were a diligent worshipper. Be kind to the lover of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and his family, for if he slips due to many sins, his love for them will ensure his steadfastness. For indeed the love for them leads to paradise, and the hatred towards them leads to the fire. This report is a very important report, because many people today, many of our brothers, the younger brothers, they say the concept of Ziyarat al-Hussein or Ziyarat al-Arba'in, where does it come from? Where does this concept come from? And we point to these reports. Say the first person to visit Imam al-Hussein salamullah alayhi, to visit his grave, to do ziyarah of his blessed grave, to come there and to recite dua and to affirm his wilayah and to affirm his bara'ah of his enemies is Sayyidina Jabir ibn Abdullah, the companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So the first person to uh, give us this was Sayyidina Jabir, Wallahi ta'ala alayhi. So if anyone says, oh, this is a bid'ah, this is an innovation, we say, you do your thing and we will follow Salaf al-Salih, alhamdulillah. Correct? Now let's go over some of the other reports regarding Jabir's life and some of the things that he narrated before his death. Al-Tabari reports, and this can be found in volume 22 of Tarikh al-Tabari, which is not a volume that we often quote. And this is also corroborated by Tabaqat ibn Sa'd in volume 4, page 387. He reports the following, that when al-Hajjaj was put in charge of Medina, he stayed there for 3 months, treating the people of Medina harshly and arbitrarily. He built a mosque there in the area of Banu Salima, which was still known by its name, and he treated the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with contempt, forcing them to wear seals around their necks. If you look at the footnote here, making someone wear a seal on their neck is basically the way you treat Ahl al-Dhimma. According to Tabari, he narrates with his report to Ibn Abi Dhi'b that someone saw Jabir ibn Abdullah with a seal on his hand. So he was essentially treating the Ansar, he was treating the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as though they were kuffar, as though they were Ahl al-Dhimma. He further reports that Jabir radhiyallahu ta'ala alayhi, whenever he would enter the presence of Hajjaj, and this is in Tabaqat ibn Sa'd, he would not greet him with salam, and he would not pray behind him. Jabir, essentially, the attitude he took is like, if you're going to treat me like a kafir, then you're a kafir. And by the way, this is just a side point, interesting point. The Mukhalifin do not consider Hajjaj to be a kafir. If you look up videos of their scholars, they have many positive things to say about Hajjaj, mashallah. Hajjaj ibn Yusuf, they have many positive things to say about him. And I've seen, I think it was Uthman al-Khamis who said, if he hadn't killed Abdullah ibn Zubayr, we would have had a good opinion of him. And it is still common to see in the Arab world people saying, we need another Hajjaj. And so to these people we say, Hasharakum Allah ma'al Hajjaj, inshallah. Ma'a hadha iljikum, qabbahahu Allah, wa amiruhu al-Malik ibn Marwan. Speaking of Abd al-Malik, Ibn Sa'd further reports, and this is found on page 386 to 387 in Tabaqat volume 4, he reports the following. He says, once Jabir entered the court of Abd al-Malik ibn Marwan, and this was when Jabir had become blind, and he reminded Abd al-Malik of Medina's sanctity, and he urged him to respect the people of Medina and their rights, much to the annoyance of Abd al-Malik. So Abd al-Malik signaled to Jabir's son to silence him, and so he did so, taking him out of the room. Abd al-Malik then ordered for him to be given 5,000 dirhams, and he took them. Essentially, Abd al-Malik treated Jabir here as basically a senile old man. He ushered for Jabir's son, get him out of my sight, give him money to silence him. And this is the beginning of the Umayyad, like Ali Marwan, and it only gets worse from here. It only gets worse from here. Now, let us take a look at some other reports regarding Jabir. Jabir was very well known for his love of the Sunnah of the Prophet, and it reached such a degree that he would travel to other lands seeking out narrations. And a great example of this has been reported by al-Bukhari in Kitab al-Adab al-Mufrad, as well as in Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal al-Khatib al-Baghdadi in al-Rihla fi Talab al-Hadith. We only quote al-Adab because it has an English translation. He says the following. He says, Jabir ibn Abdullah said, I purchased a camel and rode it hard for a month until I reached Ash-Sham. Abdullah ibn Unais was there, and I sent word to him saying, Jabir is at the door. So the messenger returned to ask, Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari? So I replied, yes. So Abdullah ibn Unais came out and embraced me. And so I said to him, a hadith reached me which I had not heard before, and I feared that one of us might die. So Jabir continues, I heard Rasulullah say, Allah will gather his slaves or his people naked, uncircumcised, without saying, we asked. What is meant by without anything? The Prophet said they will have nothing with them. They will be, and then he continues, they'll be called out by a voice that is heard from afar, and I think that he said, as if it was close at hand, saying, I am the king, none of the people of the garden will enter the garden without any of the people of the fire, and of the fire are seeking him for some injustice he did to him. None of the people of the fire will enter the fire while any of the people of the garden are seeking him for an injustice he did to him. So he says, I asked, how is this? We come to Allah naked and without any worldly goods. So he replied, this applies to good actions and evil actions. So this report in Sahih, the content of the report would indicate that Jabir radhiyallahu ta'ala alayhi was willing to travel to another land to meet another of the companions of the Prophet to corroborate a hadith, to make sure that the hadith is authentic. And subhanAllah, the mukhalifeen, in their ignorance, they find it hard to believe that someone from Kufa would travel to Medina. But here we have Jabir traveling from Medina to Bilad al-Sham. Now, let us go over some of the unique reports of Jabir regarding Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi, which affirm the beliefs of the Mu'mineen, of the Imamiyya, regarding Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi. So, here are a few examples. This report has been narrated by al-Faqihi in Kitab Akhbar Mecca, as well as Kitab al-Sunnah by Ibn Abi Asim al-Shaybani, al-Mu'jam al-Kabir by al-Tabarani, and Musnad Abi Ya'la. But for brevity's sake, we cite the version from one of the Sahih al-Sitta, which is Kitab Sunan al-Tirmidhi. And I want you to pay really close attention to this hadith. This hadith is very, very important. He reports that Rasulullah called Amir al-Mu'mineen on the day of the Battle of Ta'if, and he spoke with him privately. So the people said his private conversation with his cousin has grown lengthy. So Rasulullah said to them, I did not speak privately with him, rather Allah spoke privately with him. This report, if we look at what it is saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to Amir al-Mu'mineen through Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. The Mukhalifeen hate this hadith. The Mukhalifeen would rather drown in excrement than accept a hadith like this. So as you can see, they have graded it as da'if. Why is it da'if? If we check all the narrators, all of them are reliable. So I did some digging and I found the answer. The reason why this hadith is da'if is because Abu Zubayr al-Makki did an'ana from Jabir. Now, if you watch the last part of our series, you know that Abu Zubayr al-Makki is one of the most common reporters from Jabir ibn Abdullah. So he definitely met him. So the Mukhalifeen, I think it's Albani in as-Silsila Da'ifa, he's like, no, but he did an'ana here. We're not sure if he heard it directly from Jabir. So, okay, wait a minute. There are reports in Bukhari and Muslim where Abu Zubayr al-Makki does an'ana from Jabir. Why are you picking and choosing when his an'ana is accepted? Putting aside the fact that he was one of Jabir's most prolific students, that many of the reports from Jabir come through this very same narrator, Abu Zubayr al-Makki. Why is this one da'if, but then the ones in Bukhari and Muslim that have the same issue are accepted? What kind of a game are you playing? And again, we have shown this countless times to you, my dear brothers and sisters. When it comes to the fada'il of Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi, and the fada'il of the Ahlul Bayt and the mathalib of their enemies, you see that this system, which they champion as being a objective, fair, well-researched system, it is essentially designed to weaken hadith such as this. It is designed to negate the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullahi alayhi. But we, alhamdulillah, we affirm what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, and we affirm what Sayyidina Jabir ibn Abdullah said. Now, another report, this is Kitab al-Amali by Shaykhuna as-Saduq rahmatullahi alayhi, in Majlis 18, hadith number 6. And this report is also narrated by al-Kashi in Kitab Ikhtiyar Ma'rifat al-Rijal, volume 1, page 198, hadith number 93. He reports the following. He says that I saw from Abu Zubayr al-Makki, same guy that narrated the hadith in Tirmidhi, I saw Jabir ibn Abdullah leaning on his staff, and he was going around the pathways and gatherings of the Ansar, saying the following: Ali is the best of people. Whoever disagrees has disbelieved. O Ansar, raise your children on the love of Ali. If one refuses, then look into the affair of his mother. This is why many of the mu'mineen, sometimes you'll hear some of the older mu'mineen, they say this, like, لِمَا حِبِّ الْأَمِيرُ ibn Haram, لِمَا حِبِّ Ali ibn Abi Talib ibn Haram. Whoever does not like Ali ibn Abi Talib, you look into his lineage, look into the affair of his mother. Some of us may hear this and say, these people are going too far. How could they say such a thing? We say, this is not from them. This is the saying of Sayyidina Jabir ibn Abdullah. There's another very powerful report, and I'll quote, there are a few sources here for it. I think we should just go ahead and put them all on the screen, because this report is worth it. This report is very important. The following scholars reported it. Ahmad ibn Hanbal in Kitab Fada'il al-Sahaba, volume 2, page 563, hadith 949. Ibn Abi Shayba in the Musannaf ibn Abi Shayba, volume 13, page 75, hadith 34,292, as well as al-Baladhuri in his famous Ansab al-Ashraf in volume 2, page 353. And lastly, but certainly not least, Shaykhun al-Kashi in Ikhtiyar Ma'rifat al-Rijal, Rijal al-Kashi, volume 1, page 192, report number 86.
Salam guys, I'm going to add my 2 cents here. A unique Imami work on this hadith is Nawadir al-Athar fi Ani Khair al-Bashar. This book is written by a student of Sheikh Saduq, and within it he compiles many unique chains for it. He mentions Asim bin Umar, Salim bin Abi Ja'd, Abdurrahman bin Abi Layla, and more, all narrating this from Jabir. Do check it out.
All of these scholars reported with their chains back to Atiyah al-Awfi, and Atiyah, for further information on him, because the Mukhalifin will weaken this chain. They say this chain is da'if because of Atiyah al-Awfi. If you go back to our series on Sayyid al-Zahra, we did an in-depth breakdown as to why Atiyah is in fact a reliable narrator, so that makes this hadith more than acceptable. Correct? So the hadith says the following. It says that Jabir once said, or that from Atiyah al-Awfi, who says, we entered upon Jabir ibn Abdullah, who was an elderly man, and his eyebrows had fallen over his eyes. And sometimes you'll hear this narrated about Habib ibn Mudahir, you'll hear this narrated about reported about certain people in Islamic history. They had become so old that the flesh over their eyes had fallen over their eyes. They could no longer see. The only way for them to see is to basically take a band and to tie it back, to stretch their skin back towards their heads, or to hold it up. So they said, we came to Jabir, and by this point he was a very old man, and his eyebrows had fallen over his eyes. So Atiyah says, I asked him, tell me about this man, Ali ibn Abi Talib. It's like, Jabir, tell me about Ali ibn Abi Talib. So Jabir raised the flesh above his eyes with his hands, and he said, that is one of the best of mankind. So Jabir, imagine this old man, you can't even see his eyes anymore. He asked him about Ali ibn Abi Talib. Jabir looked at him and revealed his eyes. He looked him dead in the eye and says, ذَاكَ خَيْرُ وَلَيْسَ ذَاكَ مِنْ خَيْرُ الْبَشَرِ. Al-Baladhuri also reported a similar report. Not quite the same report, but it is similar. In Ansab al-Ashraf in volume 2, page 357 to page 358, from Muhammad ibn Abdullah ibn Atiyah al-Awfi. So he's probably narrating from his father, from his grandfather. He says the following. I asked Jabir ibn Abdullah, which man was the best amongst you? Which man was the best among you? So Jabir replied, by Allah, it was Ali ibn Abi Talib. He was the best creation after Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam. Some of the other famous reports, these are just some of the reports about Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullah alayhi. We'll go over, I think, I'll save one with him and Imam al-Baqir for the very end, just because it really packs a punch. Let's go over some of his other reports. Abu Dawood reported in Kitab Sunan Abi Dawood, hadith 5103. I believe this report is corroborated. Jabir says, Rasulullah said, when you hear the barking of dogs and the braying of, I'm not going to use this word because some people are not mature, it means donkeys at night, seek refuge in Allah, for they see what you do not see. Correct? So, this report is narrated in Kitab al-Adab of Sunan Abi Dawood. Another report, and this one is very, very important when it comes to the concept of praying on the earth. A lot of people ask, where did the Shia get their concept of praying on turba? First and foremost, I want to clarify this. When we cite reports from the Sahaba, or the Tabi'een, to prove this fiqh, it is not to say that they are the supreme authority, that this is the best source. So this report is in Sahih al-Bukhari. It is not the best source for proving this. However, it corroborates the best source, which comes from our Imams, alayhim salam. This is merely to demonstrate that it was being followed by the first generations, that these people are our Salaf, and the Mukhalifeen are not upon what Jabir is upon. So the report says, Jabir ibn Abdullah reported, and this is, I believe, reported by Ibn Suhayb al-Faqir. He says, Rasulullah said, I have been given 5 things which were not given to anyone else before me. 1, Allah made me victorious by awe, by frightening my enemies for a distance of 1 month's journey. What this means is that if Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sets out on a campaign, a month before he gets there, Allah puts fear in the hearts of his enemies. 2, the earth has been made for me and my followers a place for praying and a thing to perform tayammum. Therefore, any one of my followers can pray wherever the time of prayer is due. What is it in Arabic when we look at this? وَجُعِلَتْ لِيَ الْأَرْض مَسْجِدًا وَطَهُورًا. So this is a proof for the law of praying on a turba. Number 3, the booty has been made halal, lawful for me, yet it was not lawful for anyone else before me. 4, I have been given the right of intercession on the day of resurrection. And 5, every prophet used to be sent to his nation only, but I have been sent to all of mankind. وَبُعِثْتُ إِلَى النَّاسِ عَامَّةً. And this report is also corroborated in a few Shia sources. I believe one of them is Kitab al-Khisal. In Nasa'i reports, and this is another report that helps with to prove the shara' when it comes to being the permissibility of praying on a turba. Sunan al-Nasa'i, hadith 1081, he reports the following. We used to pray dhuhr with Rasulullah, and I would take a handful of pebbles in my hand to cool them down. Then I would pass them from one hand to the other, and when I prostrated, I would put them down to lay my forehead on them. Another example of Jabir corroborating the fiqh of the Imamiyah can be found in Sahih Muslim. And this is Sahih Muslim, these 2 reports, hadith 1405C and 1405B. And the reports are very interesting. And again, we'll let them speak for themselves. The report says, from Ibn Jurayj, and when Ibn Jurayj is narrating something, we know it's about to be interesting. He reported from Ata, who said, Jabir came to perform Umrah, and we came to his abode, and the people were asking him about different things, and they made a mention of temporary marriage. Whereupon he said, yes, we had been benefiting ourselves by this temporary marriage during the lifetime of the Prophet and during the time of Abu Bakr and Umar. Now here's a question. The Mukhalifin claim that this marriage was allowed at one point and then it was banned. So, by the Prophet. If it was banned by the Prophet, why is Jabir saying that they were doing it during the time of Abu Bakr and Umar? In the next report, in Hadith 1405D, he reported from Ibn Jurayj and Abu Zubayr al-Makki. And again, this is Sahih Muslim. From Abu Zubayr al-Makki, they narrated that Jabir ibn Abdullah said, we contracted temporary marriage by giving a handful of tails or flour as a dower during the lifetime of Rasulullah and during the time of Abu Bakr until Umar forbade it in the case of Amr ibn Hurayth. So this hadith is very clear. It was not the Prophet that banned this marriage, it was Umar ibn al-Khattab. Now here are some of the reports of Jabir regarding Imam al-Mahdi Ajjallahu Farajahu al-Sharif. And once again, this is Sahih Muslim on the authority of Abu Zubayr al-Makki. To highlight how when it comes to Abu Zubayr's reports from Jabir, they accepted it, except when it came to the report about Amir al-Mu'mineen salamullah alayhi. Jabir ibn Abdullah reported, I heard Rasulullah say, a section of my people will not cease fighting for the truth and will prevail till the day of resurrection. Then he said Isa ibn Maryam would then descend, and their Muslim commander would invite him to come and lead them in prayer, but he would say, no, some amongst you are commanders over some amongst you. This is the honor from Allah for this ummah. Right? The Amir who is mentioned here, right? Amiruhum. The Amir mentioned here is Imam Sahib al-Zaman, Ajjallah farajahu al-Sharif. In Kitab Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal reports the following, with a chain to take a wild guess who's reporting this from Jabir, Abu Zubayr al-Makki. If you guessed Abu Zubayr al-Makki, you win nothing because it was obvious. So Abu Zubayr al-Makki reports that Jabir said, Rasulullah said, Ad-Dajjal will come out at a period of almost total absence of religion and a demise of knowledge, and he has 40 nights to run to travel around the lands. A day is similar, felt as long to a year, and a day is similar to a month, and a day is similar to a week. Then the remaining of his days are like your days. And he has a donkey that he rides with a width of 40 arms between his ears. Then he tells people, I am your Lord, and he is one-eyed, and your Lord is not one-eyed, and it is written kafir between his eyes. I remember there was I dread to use the term scholar here, but I think it was Asim al-Hakim. He says this hadith proves that Allah has two eyes, because Rasulullah said your Lord is not one-eyed. So one looks at the logic of these people. It's like, subhanAllah, so wait, what about three? He said your Lord is not one eye. That can mean he can have 3 eyes, or 4, or 5. Why are you saying it only means 2? Correct? So he says that Dajjal has the word kafir written between his eyes, and it is read by each writing and non-writing believer. He reaches every water source and spring but Al-Madinah and Mecca. Allah has prohibited both of them to him, and angels were charged with the protection of their doors. And he has mountains of bread, and people are in hardship, but those who follow him. And he has 2 rivers with him. And I, the Prophet ﷺ, am more knowledgeable about both of them than he is. One river is saying Al-Jannah, and the other one is saying An-Nar. The one who gets into the one he calls Al-Jannah then is in hellfire, and the one who enters the one he calls An-Nar then is in heaven. He ﷺ further said, then Allah will send Satans with him that will talk to the people, and there is a great temptation with him. He orders the sky, then it will rain while people are watching. Then he kills a soul, then he makes it rise as people are watching, and he will have no power over other souls. Then he will say, O people, is anything like this done by anyone but a Lord? The Prophet further said, the Muslims will escape towards the mountain of smoke at the Levant till he reaches them and beleaguers them, and the siege gets hard, and he exerts them, makes them exhausted. Then Isa ibn Maryam salamullahi alayhi will come down and calls starting at 4 dawn, which is the last time of the night before dawn, and says, O people, what prohibits you from going to this malignant liar? They will say, this is a man who is a demon. Then they go and they get with Isa alayhi salam for prayer, and he is told, O Ruh Allah, lead the prayer. But then he says, let your Imam come forward and lead your prayer. Then once he performs the morning prayer, they will go out to him. And then he said, then when he meets the liar dissolves like salt dissolves in water, and then he walks towards him and kills him, and then the tree and stones call, Ya Ruh Allah, this is a Jew, and he would not leave any of his followers, but that he would kill him. Now this report, Allahu a'lam bi sahhatihi. Allahu a'lam if everything here is accurate. However, there are a few things that are worthy of note. Number one, in this hadith, it is hujjah on the mukhalifin, because it's according to Shu'aib al-Na'ut, isnaduhu ala shart Muslim. There are a few things here that are hujjah against the mukhalifin. Obviously, it is important because it corroborates that Imam Sahib al-Zaman, Ajjallahu faraj al-Sharif, would lead Isa in Salat. Correct? The other thing is that this report affirms karamat for the Dajjal. SubhanAllah, when we narrate certain things about the Ahlul Bayt, or certain miracles about Amir al-Mu'mineen or al-Hasan wal-Hussein and the Imams from their lineage, the Mukhalifeen say, look at these people, look at their ghulu. Correct? We narrate to people that the first nur that Allah created is the nur of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They say this is ghulu. But then they affirm that a Dajjal can essentially perform miracles, that he can revive the dead. So, na'udhu billah min al-jahl. Lastly, I want to go over, and this will be our final sort of chapter for this lecture, is the report of Jabir regarding al-Imam as-Sajjad, salamullahi alayhi. This is a very beautiful report. It is reported by Ibn Asakir with a chain to one of Jabir's companions. And once again, I want you to pause the video and take a wild guess which companion of Jabir narrates this on his authority. If you guessed Abu Zubayr al-Makki, then you win nothing because it was obvious. Correct? Abu Zubayr reports the following. This is reported in Tarikh Dimashq by Ibn Asakir in volume 41, page 370. He says, he reports with his chain to Abu Zubayr, who narrates, we were with Jabir ibn Abdullah, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayh, when Ali ibn al-Hussein alayhi salam entered. So Jabir, when Jabir was aware of Ali ibn al-Hussein's presence, he said, I was with Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam one day when al-Hussein alayhi salam entered, and Rasulullah embraced him and kissed him and seated him beside him. Then he said, a son will be born to my son, and he will be called Ali. On the day of resurrection, a caller will call out from beneath the throne, let the leader of the worshippers, Sayyidul Abidin, arise, and he will rise. And so this is Jabir, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhi. Say he's affirming the imamah of Imam al-Sajjad and reporting one of his great fada'il is that on Yawm al-Qiyamah, the malaika, a malak will come out and will call out, Aina Sayyidul Abidin, where is the master of the worshippers? And Imam al-Sajjad will step forward.